This little brown nymph here is a kind of variant of mine of a flashback pheasant tail, and it has proven itself to be highly effective during the hatches of the claret duns or the Leptophlebia Vespertina, which is a really popular hatch to fish in Scandinavia on the lakes, and it can be also one of the most challenging ones. It doesn't take a lot of flies to hatch before the trout get more and more interested into taking the nymphs. And typically when these hatches start, you can have some quite good dry fly fishing the first day or two, and then when the hatches get heavier, the trout goes over to just eating the nymph subsurface. And if you don't have a good pattern for that and know how to do it, you will most likely lose. And this fly can be a cold cracker for this kind of fishing. Pair it up with a dry fly rod, use a long leader, 18 foot or so, cast well in front of a rising fish. Quite often you can see their tailing fins coming like this. And then you cast out, let the fly sink down, and when you see the fish get closer, you start to do a quite steady hand twist. That's usually a good trick. So let's have a look at the materials for this. Start with the hook, Kamasan, 175 size 14. These are small hooks for the size, so this 14 is more like a 16, yeah, a small 16 actually. It has a nice big gap and it's quite short shank, heavy wire, traditional wet fly hook. I like it very much for this kind of nymphs, and just to have that little bit of weight in a hook is, I think, is really good. The tying thread I use for this, black thread, Vivus 14-0. And then for the tails, bronze Mallard, makes very nice tails on all kinds of nymphs. The rib, UTC, extra small copper wire. This is also for reinforcement of the fly. So I wrap this the opposite way of the pheasant tail fibers that I tie in. And these are the pheasant tail fibers, dyed dark brown. Match these nymphs really beautifully. Then over to the wing cases. Number one I tie in is the flashback, the flash on top. I use Mirage Flashabou. It's like 1 millimeter, half a millimeter wide. You can also use the thinnest uni pearl tinsel if you like. Second one is the Flashbacktinsel, UTC, size large. Almost too big for this small fly, but it works really well if you dye the thorax a little bit chunky as I do. And then we have the thorax, Icedub in black peacock, very nice color for this, and give that kind of two-tone fly that I like, slightly darker in the thorax than the abdomen. It's almost black as the Wingcase, which also is typical when these mayflies are ready to hatch. And then we have the Hackle. I use a whiting hand hackle for this, and a couple of rounds, round and a half is plenty, so you can tie a couple of flies per hackle. Okay, let's tie the fly. Start off by fastening the thread, cut it off by the hook point. Then I fasten the tails. I have 4 bronze Mallard fibers. Tear them off and measure up about the length of the body or the hook outside the bend. Like so. Now I like to fasten in the ribbing as well. The extra small UTC wire in copper. Ribbing goes in first. Then I just pull that one to the correct length so it can lay there under the body like this. A couple of wraps. Then we have the pheasant tail fibers. This size 14, it's enough with 3 of those. Just even out the tips. Fasten them on the top like this. Go forward with the thread. A little bit longer than where the thorax should start. Try to wrap this nicely now so that the fibers kind of stand on the hook. Nice tight turns. Then you get this nice look that can be like a gilt body. I go a little bit longer than I need to. We'll just tie it over afterwards. Secure this with a couple of wraps. Don't cut it all short, but a little tag there that I can tie down and build up some of the thorax, like so. Now, very important to make a durable body, I rib the opposite way of the hairs are wrapped. Like 5 segments, that's like ideal. A couple of turns up the hook, tie this down now. And then we just hold the thread up. Do a little bit of a helicopter to take it off. Now for the wing cases. The Mirage is the first piece. It's going to be on top. Lift it in place. And drag it to the correct length, which is the length of the thorax or so. Fasten it down with a few turns. Then it's time for the Flashbacktinsel, and you can cut a little bit of a point on this one just to make it a little bit easier to tie in. This large tinsel on this rather small fly is almost over the limit of size, but it works if you dub the body a little bit nice and chunky. I'll check if that's nicely centered on the top. Now I can also tie a little bit further down to make the thorax the size it should be. It should almost be the size of half of the size of the hook. Yeah, like this or so is nice. The body on a nymph is not like 30% thorax and 70% abdomen. It's more like 60-40. So now it's time to dub the thorax. The Icedub in Black Peacock. Take out a small portion. Start to massage those fibers onto the thread. This can be a little bit fiddly to dub nice and hard, but just take a little by little and add to the thread and it will be just fine. Okay, let's do the first layer here and see if that will be enough. Almost. This one is quite easy to compress afterwards as well, so you can kind of push it a little bit together if you like. Like so. We can kind of squeeze it a little bit tighter like this. Time for hackle, the hen hackle. I'll strip the stem a little bit, and I want to kind of, when I tie this in, I want to have a round or two almost before, with the stem before the hackle fibers come, so I can control this nicely. So, and we don't need a lot of hackle. Just 1.5 round. That's plenty. I'm not going to overdress this fly. Just go 1 round, I like full round. Come up with your thread. Wiggle through the fibers. Couple of turns. Then we have it. Now straight the stem a little bit. Sneak the scissor in there and cut off the excess. Now with good tension on the thread, you tie these extra wraps, these fibers here. You can decide if they want to be a part of it or not. I think so. So just bend them backwards like this. Now is the time to split this hackle a little bit before, because we're not going to have anything on the top. It's going to be mostly out to the sides, and that also gives some kind of balance to the fly when you pull it through the water. So check now, and if there are some like this silly one on top here, I'm going to cut that one off. sticky, and there we are. Then over with the flashback tinsel first. Pull it over, center it on top, all the way through the eye. 1, 2, 3 turns. Pull it backwards. 1, 2. And then you can cut. Since we're going to have UV on top of this fly, it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of things sticking up right now. Over with the Mirage. Center it on top. 1 turn, check it. Couple more. Back. And then we finish off the fly. Having a sizable head is kind of part of the imitation. You don't want to have really tiny head on this nymph. Nymph, they have quite big heads. Putting a series of 2 whip finish with 3-4 wraps. There we are. I can also sneak the scissors under this Mirage. Cut that off. Almost done now. Time for the UV glue. Add a small portion of UV. Just going to cover, we're not going to build up a lot. And you certainly don't want to build up as much, so you get this kind of air bubble effect on the top here. So be a little bit cautious when you put this on. Use your bodkin to spread it out nicely. Put some on the head as well. Check on the sides here. I think we're good now. Just to finish that one off now, I'm going to put on a quite small drop of tying varnish. So when this dries, it will be like 100% tack free. To put a little bit on the underside of the head. There we are. Dark brown flashback pheasant tail nymph.